Anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. Be safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and or YouTube, and follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram, and Jumping Pud Pod on Twitter. And if you want to support our podcast, check out our coffee. Hi, I'm Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts, Ash and Tor.
Hi.
Hey. And today's episode, we will be discussing Coup D'Etat. After a team from Atlantis goes missing, the expedition finds itself in the middle of a Genii coup.
Like 3, 2, 1.
Dun, 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 dun.
Not terrible. You guys couldn't see it on your end, but Ash and Sam used this exact same fingered motions to describe impending doom for our Atlantis team. It was quite great.
Just imagine a toddler smashing the piano. That's what we did.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to make a confession in that I always get this episode confused with Todd's introduction episode. I always switch those ones in my brain for some reason, and I guess it's because they both involve the Genii and, like, rescue missions, I guess. But yeah, I always just swap those two in my brain.
What's the introduction episode called, actually?
Common
you remember?
Ground, I want to say.
Common Ground, Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Honestly, fair play, because I'll take it one step further. I didn't even remember this episode at all. The plot of this episode just was not in my brain. I've never thought about this episode in my life. It was nice to come, and actually, I think it's a lot better than, at least for me, it was a lot better than I anticipated, and I think, especially after sort of this run of episodes we've had, where I just despise like most of them. I think this is an episode that I actually enjoyed quite a lot, and I think it's probably, I don't know, it's been a while. I was literally gonna say, like, I don't think I've enjoyed an episode this much since like Epiphany ish, but like maybe even like The Hive or Aurora. Like, I was going far.
Yeah, I also never remember this episode. Like, I think the only thing I always remember is, like, I know the title, and I remember that Layden Redeem is in it, but I remember him because I know the actor better from Sanctuary than from Stargate. So, yeah, that was my... Yeah, but the episode... For me, it's the other way around than for Sam. For me, it's like, this episode exists, and I watched it, and I was bored a lot. Yeah, it was just one of these episodes. I don't think there are a lot, but this episode did not really hold my attention. And I think once I remembered roughly what was gonna happen, I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I feel like my experience was like the middle ground where I just erased this episode from my brain, and then everything was a nice surprise for me. Like, I knew that Lorne and his team weren't dead. Like, I remember that part of the episode. But, like, the whole double crossing stuff, I totally forgot. Or the double agent thing. So it was fun to get to re-experience that, as well as I really enjoyed Elizabeth in this episode. I was going to say for some reason, but I know the reason. It's because she had so many great lines, and I feel like she was really recognized as, like, the leader in this episode. Like, everyone treated her with, like, the gravitas I feel like she deserves, instead of, like, looking to Shepard or somebody else for answers or things like that. So, yeah.
No, it's just nice to have her in an episode for more than 10 minutes. And it's nice to have her, like, doing leadership things. I do wish, I feel like, unfortunately, she always gets shoved as, like, the warrior, though. Like, she's always just, like, worrying about the team and being like, are they gonna make it back, blah, blah, blah. So, don't love that, but it fits this episode, so I'm like, okay, I'll just give it a pass. But no, it was really good. And she was just so surprising. Just, again, since we've all, like, just erased this episode from our brains, just having her, like, in this episode and having her, like, say some of the funniest lines, I was just loving it.
She has some really funny lines, and also just, like, some like, witty or, like, snappy little things here and there, and I love that. I love that we saw her with all or most of the team members, like, interacting not just with one of them, and, like, also what you said, Sam, not only seeing her for, like, 2 minutes, but also, like, seeing her for, like, throughout the episode, and seeing what she's doing, it with her thoughts, and seeing her as herself, and not, like, in last episode, was it last episode or the episode before that? Yeah, so I really liked all that.
Yeah, I feel like she finally had the opportunity in an episode to, as herself, push the plot forward in a way. Like, her decisions and her okays were the ones that led to things happening in the episode, which was cool. I liked seeing, in the beginning particularly, John deferring to her opinion on which missions should take priority, even when he doesn't necessarily agree or want to. Similarly, Layden treating her as the person of authority on Atlantis over John or anybody else, which was really cool to see and exciting to see finally from a character. Just her...
It's really sad that we have to... Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's really sad that we have to, like, praise that. Like, or we have to say that, oh, look, people treated her, like, as the character that she is, or, like, treated her, like, according to the role she plays in Atlantis. Like, it shouldn't be special that the leader of another planet is, like, treating her with, like, not respect, but, like, on a level of, like, oh, I'm the leader, you're the leader, we are the ones negotiating. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I will say, though, that I mean, I guess personally it's not really a problem for me, because I think it's kind of funny that she gets sort of swept away with John and Ronan's, like, go ham, love war kind of mentality. But for those people who don't like it, I can see why this episode might have bugged them, because I will say, Elizabeth, Miss Girl, what are you doing? She was getting swept up in all the shenanigans way too easily. She agreed to a raid? Like, I gotta say, her decision-making this episode was a little scattered. Not only because of the raid, but then also because when the Janai, we're skipping all the way to the end, are threatening John, and saying, like, oh, he has 15 minutes. She kind of just had no plan. If it wasn't for Layden stepping in, like, John would have died, and then I don't know what would have happened with Rodney and the rest of them. I think, I have really no idea, because there was, like, no plan. Like, she wasn't letting Ronan go in and save them, but, like, she wasn't gonna give him jumpers, she was just kind of like, oh, like, anything, please. So, I mean, again, it doesn't necessarily bug me per se, but I do have to say she was a little shaky this episode.
A part of me wants to like reconcile that fact with thinking that maybe she thought they were bluffing, because all the people that they had were ATA gene carriers, so I don't know if she had clicked at that point the 2 and 2 together and was like, they're not going to kill them because they need them to operate the jumpers and operate the technology, which is a gamble, even if she was thinking that. But I don't know. I'm just gonna give her the benefit.
Okay. Well, I see what you mean. Because Layden does tell John that they're developing their own like gene therapy thing, but she doesn't know that.
True.
So I guess I could see why she'd be like, "Oh, they won't kill them." But then again, like, she would have called the wrong bluff because they would have killed them because they had a therapy already for the genes. Especially, like, come on, like, I understand that, like, I understand Layden being like, okay, I won't kill, like, I don't know, Lorne or whatever, but I feel like they would kill John. At the very least, just to send a message. Like, I don't think they would kill Rodney. I think they would genuinely, like, just, like, kidnap him because he's too useful. But I feel like just to, like, really send a message to Atlantis and be like, fuck you guys, it would not surprise me if they killed John, or again, like some other, more of the military guys, other than Rodney.
True.
Sorry, I have to ask because I watched the episode yesterday, but so much has happened since then, so I don't I forgot it already. So the Janai developed their own ATA gene therapy, and it's working already.
They didn't confirm.
No. Well, no, go ahead.
That it was working, but they're developing it. It's in the works. And
if
Beckett could do it,
yeah,
it's possible.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, if it was still in the works, then it would be kind of stupid to kill Job because he has like the strongest gene.
True.
So they would have kind of shot themselves in the foot.
But do they know that though? Do they know that he has a strong gene?
I feel like they would because like they are super sneaky and like they know a lot of things and they know that all these people like they know of all the team members that had the ATA gene. All men, by the way.
Yeah.
So I feel like they would know that John has the strongest gene, so they would be pretty stupid. But then are they Janai really that smart? They have whatever
hoodwinking us. They keep pulling the blanket over our heads. We look stupid every time we go up against them. So honestly, they are kind of smart.
Yeah.
That's
fair. And I noticed that, especially like I could have noticed before with like Kolya and everything in the storm. But like they have like no moral compass, I feel like none at all. They don't fucking care about their own people. They don't fucking care about the lives of anyone. They are just like damn. Like the only one that I like a smidge of like morality I feel like was Layden in the end. Or like Layden going through with this coup, whether that will be like better in the end. I honestly don't really remember. But they're insane.
Yeah, and then Layden's motivation is also a selfish one as well, because his sister is among one of the prisoners and she can be healed by Beckett. So if they didn't have that possibility, and of course he wants to be in power himself. So if he got rid of Cowan, then he would be next in line as well. So it's just very these Janai.
Yeah.
You never know how to feel about them.
Yeah. There's like a meme that I often think of when it comes to ethics. And it's like just a picture of Rush. And it's like, ethics? What the fuck are ethics? And I think about that a lot. And I think it also applies to this Janai.
Absolutely. Another questionable thing, I guess you could say, about the scenario is the ZPM. So the whole reason they were entertaining Layden was because of this ZPM potential. And I just feel like, I guess they had stars in their eyes because they were like, oh, a ZPM. And like Elizabeth and Rodney especially were so excited. But I would have thought that Rodney maybe would have been like considered the possibility that the ZPM was like not fully charged or not dead necessarily, but like not fully charged. So he would have been like, okay, well, you had to prove that it's working or something before accepting the negotiation. But I guess he assumed that it was the same one that they stole in the Brotherhood, so he didn't have cause to question.
Yeah, I think they mentioned it, right? They were like, oh, this is the one from... We went back to the planet and we got it from the Brotherhood of Five. So
right.
They, like... Yeah, they had mentioned it. But yeah, it was a little silly of the team. It's like, all anyone needs to do is wave a ZPM in our face and we lose, like, all logic. Logic is out the window. Everyone was just, like, salivating, like, oh my god, a ZPM! And Rodney even says, like, oh, maybe we can get the city to fly. And everyone's like, ooh. And Rodney's like, I mean, not really, but like, he's like, eventually, which is a nice little tease for what's to come in later seasons. But yeah, I have to agree that I think everyone was just a little silly. A little silly.
Definitely. Also, why, like, in this case, or in this, situation that they are in right now, why would they want the city to fly exactly? Like, does it just say, look what we can do, or is there actually a tactical benefit to it right now?
I mean, I guess just like a plan Z in case the Wraith come. They can zoom out of there with their flying ship.
Yeah.
You know, Rodney, with his catastrophizing, I'm sure he's like, and this is how we could die, and this is how we could die. So, wants to plan for every eventuality. Speaking of Rodney, really enjoyed his t-shirt action in this episode for no reason. He was just in a t-shirt. Thanks, costume people, for that. I appreciate it.
He didn't have a lot to do, unfortunately, which is, a downside of the episode. But he served.
Mm-hmm.
He served with his looks. So, that kind of made up for it. It was like, we didn't get a lot of Rodney, sad. But he looked really good. And I was like, okay, I could take it.
And I think he had a few quite iconic, like, one of his, like, very iconic scenes. Like, not super iconic, but I thought it was super funny that he was in charge of kind of protecting the other scared scientists just in the beginning. Like, he was just as scared, but like he was like trying to look tough, but like wasn't. And then later, his moment where he's like, "Oh, did you see that I almost stunned that guy?" It's like, yeah, but you didn't. But yeah, but almost. And then, of course, when he tried to do, like, tactical speak or, like, tactical, like, hand signs, whatever, it just, like, one tango, middle of the room. It's like, no, Rodney, no.
Oh, yeah, he was, like, the definition of a brave little toaster in this episode. Just so, so funny, so cute. I like that this is, like, a continuing thread in the show. Like, we'll see later episodes where he has to do, like, tactical things or, like, go on missions with, like, a stunner. And he's just as incompetent as now, but always in a cute, fun way that's so very Rodney that I love. Yeah, I'm, like, questioning the tactical decision-making of making Rodney stay behind with the scared scientist, while they all go charging off. Like, should somebody with a gun who knows how to use it stand with the scared scientist and then the other two, like, stay with Rodney? I don't know. But, yeah. Also, I laughed extremely hard at Ronan judging the poor girl. I think her name is Dr. Lindsay. Yeah. So hard.
Yeah. Oh, God.
For following Lorne's instructions and going to the gate to get help. He was like, you just left them? Like, yes, this is what normal people would do in the situation, Ronan. Not everybody is AR1 where they just go in yelling and screaming in order to save their teammates. Like, not everybody is Rambo.
I was just gonna say, why did they put Ronan into the room trying to investigate? Like, what happened? Why? What was the idea here?
Teyla was so pissed. She was like, boy, if you don't shut the fuck up right now.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, going back to what you just said though about like the tactical, this is like just having Rodney there, having him protect the scientists. I was just like, okay, but what makes sense about having Rodney go with John on the raid? Like, who in their right mind was like, yeah, let Rodney go on a raid? Why wasn't it Ronan? I guess the only reason why they didn't have Ronan go was because Ronan doesn't have the gene, so it was like all the gene people in one place. But it almost doesn't make any sense for, like, now I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, it should have been Ronan and John, and they could have been like, oh, you were supposed to be Rodney, not like Ronan or whatever, and they could have been like, okay, we'll start with you, then we'll kill you first, and then it would have made more sense as to why, then they for sure would have actually killed Ronan because he doesn't have the gene. That could have been an easy little solution, but so funny.
Yeah, it's why I always joke, like, Rodney is the emotional support person for the team, because half the time I feel like he should just not be there. But he's like the security blanket, and they just bring him anyways. For no reason besides the pleasure of his company, because what purpose is he serving?
Also, wait, since we're on the topic of Ronan, I feel like it's just been a little bit, I feel like since we've had like some good Ronan stuff, right? It's been quite a while. And we can talk for hours about how there should have been a Ronan episode again this season. But I do have to say, I think there's some very, like, underrated, like, Ronan one-liners and just, like, scenes. And not just Ronan, I think Teyla as well. I think they actually have, like, a decent B-plot. I mean, it kind of gets abandoned halfway through, which pisses me off. And they kind of disappear at the end. But that, like, first 20 minutes, I was like, oh my god, I was like, wait, I was like, this relates to the story in an interesting way. I was like, they're off doing, like, their good cop, bad cop kind of thing, you know? And they were investigating, and I was like, yay.
Oh, yeah.
They're more like intense cop and more intense cop. I felt like. Yeah. But yeah, that was really fun to see them. And one scene that made me laugh was when they show Elizabeth the photos of like all the team members of Atlantis, and Ron's like, why is there not a picture of me? Like, I should be wanted. And then say, yeah, I just he's so offended that he's not wanted by the Jedi, and he's like, I just want to find out who thinks I'm not a threat and give them a chance to change their mind. And Elizabeth's like, no, you're all good. You don't have the gene. I'm sure everyone thinks you're very threatening. I just love that. Like him being so offended, and Elizabeth being like, no, you're good. You're still scary.
Very good, Elizabeth and Ronan flirting crumbs this episode.
Right?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, Ronan is just a little comedian this episode. He was really funny. Like, in the beginning of the episode, too, and John almost gets smushed to death by, like, a falling wood piece or roof. And then Ronan's like, it's not safe to be in here. Like, so deadpan and, like, nonchalant after John just almost died. It was so great. Oh, the line delivery is amazing. Like, you can understand why Jason Momoa went to become, like, a superstar after the show, because his sense of comedic timing is just great. But also, like, weird Ronin lore drop in this episode. The fact that he can, like, read possibly some of the different languages that were on the wanted poster. Like, that's cool.
Ooh. That's true. I got excited when I was like, ooh, different languages. That's so cool. Although I wonder if it's like actual different languages or just different writing systems.
That's true.
Because they all speak English. Which we won't get into because we just accept that as a fact. But yeah, that's true. It's really cool that he like at least recognizes them. But I guess it makes sense. Like to me, it makes sense because he's been on the run for like 7 years,
Right.
and he probably had to, or I assume that he. Well, like we don't know. Sorry, my mind is spinning on. We don't know that much about Satida and like their relationship to other planets, I guess. So maybe if they had like trade relations or something, or even like whatever, he might have learned like another language or something. But I think most of it came from being on the run for so long, just having to get around, having to like learn to read signs, literally. Like, maybe knowing where it's safe, where he can stay, or, maybe just also recognize people, or, like, recognize, like, the vibe of, like, a town or something. But yeah, that's really cool. I hadn't considered it like that.
Yeah, and I think given his background too, his more, like, artistic background from, like, the little we get, I also think it makes sense, and it's even more heartbreaking just to sort of picture him, like, a younger Ronin running around, like, just trying to read the signs and stuff and trying to find out, like, which place, where he's safe. And I also think, I could see him, like, having sort of, like, prized possessions kind of thing, where he, he keeps, like, very small trinkets with him. And I can just imagine him, like, having, like, bits of paper or, like, bits of pages from books or something, sort of trying to keep that art or that like love for the arts alive inside of him.
And yeah, just to speak on a little bit more, Elizabeth's interactions with Ronan and Teyla in this episode, I really thought her little like, oh, be careful guys, to them was cute. Looking out for them.
Yeah, it was sweet. And I think you mentioned earlier, like, oh, it's just nice to see Elizabeth, like, interacting with, like, the other members of the team, because it's been a while since, we've seen them all in one place and they've interacted. Especially, we always complain about the lack of Teyla and Elizabeth. So there's, like, a little crumb where they sort of look at each other and they, like, nod, which was nice, I guess.
Yeah.
I wish we could have seen a little more, but I'm just happy that, at least she got some, like, scenes with Ronan. That was nice.
Absolutely. And her outfit was a total slay this episode. Her outfit, her hair, she was just killing it. You go, Teyla.
Teyla looked so good. Like, it's probably one of my favorite looks from her. And she has some good looks in season 2, but this is definitely, I think, one of her best so far. I was just like, oh my god, and I love, like, the half up, half down. I was just like, she looked...
It was very cute.
So good.
Also, I love that, everything what you just said. And I love that there's one scene where she, like, gives some tactical insight, I guess. It's just like, I think they're planning the raid and she's just like saying, oh, we should come from this side or that or something. I don't remember exactly, but it's like some tactical things that shows that she knows what she's talking about. And going back to Rodney not really knowing anything and like, but being there and her, but knowing beforehand, like giving like ideas or like having a plan of what's about to happen even if she wasn't there in the end.
Yeah, I think we have to give some credit to this episode for having a decent subplot, at least in the beginning. I think there was good dialogue, good characterization, finally, for them too. And I like the scene of them going off and trying to get answers at the bar from that guy. And then later, the lady gives him the bag and she's like, quick on her feet. He's like, yeah, it's totally mine. It just pops out. And she's just like, that's not yours. So it's these little moments that I really enjoyed. I wish there was,
Speaking of crumbs, we got a little bit of Lorne in this episode. Poor Lorne. Really funny that they made us think for 6 minutes that he was dead. Also, I think it's just so tragic how he was like, when John got pushed into the little makeshift jail cell with him, he was all, let me know if I can help you with my own rescue. That wasn't even supposed to be my own rescue because you thought I was dead. Because I feel like that's just constantly Lorne's state of being, where he's either the one rescuing everyone from doing something dumb or being on the receiving end of a terrible botched rescue. So it's just old hat for him now. He's just so used to it. And I always say this, we always say this, but I feel like they missed an opportunity to have a more Lorne-centric episode, like with his team. Just because there's so much there. It could have been a fun thing.
Yeah, the whole, like, B team thing,
Yeah.
there's so much potential for that. Or, like, it wouldn't be, like, lower decks, but, like, just, like, okay, so we're just, like, well, it's a little bit like lower decks, because, like in Star Trek Lower Decks, it's, like, the show about, like, a ship that does, like, the first contact, but second contact, or, like, all that stuff. And then, of course, it's not about, like, the bridge crew, but about, like, the, like, lower, like, the lower deckers. But yeah, it would be so much fun. Just seeing, like, is it just AR1 that always gets in trouble? Or is it just, like, a common theme among, like, AR teams? But I missed him, like, I knew he wasn't dead, but when it was like, oh no, his team is dead, I was like, no, not Lorne. But he's okay. He's alive. He's a bit, I think he could probably use a shower and, like, some food. But he's okay. Yay.
I love his little interaction with John. I mean, he's not really in the episode, which is rather unfortunate. But his little interaction with John is so cute. And again, it just another little relationship that we don't really get a lot of, but is really sweet. Because when you think about it, like, Lorne is sort of his second in command ish, probably. So they would have, like, a close relationship. And I think they bounce off each other so well, right? We have, they're very, like, snarky, sarcastic to each other, but they understand each other's humor very well. And it goes along with my headcanon that probably everyone had a crush on John at some point.
Yeah.
And so Lorne definitely had a crush on John, a little hero crush, before he met Parrish. But I love him. And I also wanted to point out, I love the little scene in the beginning when the team finds out that, like, or, they find his dog tags. And Teyla looks so sad. And I think their dynamic is, again, another super underrated friendship. I think, I don't know, I feel like he would be always on her side. She'd be always rooting for him. They just have a very easygoing time together, I think. And so her looking so sad in the background, I just felt, my heart, that sold it to me. I was like, no, he's gone. He's not. But I was like, no, for her, he's gone.
Controversial feeling that I have. Don't kill me for saying this. We can cut this out if it's super off base. But I was just thinking when you brought that up about their conversation in season 4 after the team finds out that Teyla's pregnant. And in my head, I'm like, why didn't they make Lorne her secret lover? Why? I think that could have been potentially something there. That's just me. And then when there's, like, a scene in, like, season 3 where John is, like, joshing around with Teyla, being like, oh, you have a crush on one of, like, the military guys, like, could have been Lorne. But anyway,
Yeah, no, that hacked canon got accepted real quick. Yeah,
Good.
no, absolutely. I think it could totally work. I think also Lorne seems like such a wife guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think no matter who his relationship partner is, he would treat them so well. And yeah, no. Oh, yeah, I like that. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind Lorne and Parrish. I think they're cute. It's just like they had one scene together and everyone just fucking ran with it. So I get it, and I also like to live off headcanons. I'm like, okay, I'm here, but I also really enjoy the Teyla and Lorne dynamic, and I think there's a lot there, and I just think it works a lot better than John and Teyla. Again, no offense.
Yeah.
We always have to, I feel like John and Teyla are always getting strays. You know, I'm sorry, we're just not big fans of them, and I just feel like they would work way better, just make way more sense, because I think what it kind of comes down to for me is that like Lorne is prepared, Lorne is ready for it. It's not like a woman having to wait and like sort of fertilize her plant or like her future plant husband kind of thing, right? Like John is like has like one stem like barely out of the ground. He's not ready for anything. But Lorne has like a full flower. Lorne has many flowers. Lorne has like a whole bush. It gives off berries. Like he is like ready for a relationship, for marriage, for kids. Like that's her man.
I'm loving
That's
this
a
extended
man.
metaphor.
That's a man.
That's a
I take it
man.
too far.
I love
That
it.
metaphor, though.
Thank you.
You're
John's
so
a
real.
boy. Let's just be so real.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. He's not ready at all. He's a piece of work.
No,
Yeah.
he's like the definition of a fixer-upper that has like the foreclosure sign on it, and it's like
Yeah.
it's been
Yes.
like the tractor is coming to like steamroll it because it's just done. Like the
Yeah.
the emotional intimacy impossible. Emotional
He's Peter
constipation.
Pan.
Yes, exactly. There's just no way.
He's like cute when you're a kid and you're like, oh my god, that's the dream man. And then you grow up and you're like, well, he's not it for me anymore.
Yeah, unless you're into that fixer uppers, not Peter Pan.
Yeah.
But
You were clarifying. I was like, wait a minute.
but you're so right, so real for that.
Yeah. Also, this is really random, but what happened to not that I shipped them, but I was thinking about like Taylor's encounters with like military guys. What happened to, was it his name Barnes in season 1? The one she punched?
Oh, Bates.
No, Bates, not
Right.
Barnes. Bates. Yeah. What happened to him?
He comes back on the show eventually. Shit.
He does?
Yeah. What was his position again?
Season 4, right? Season 4, I want to say.
Yeah.
Quite prominent in the first few episodes, and then he just vanished. I feel like after Letters to Pegasus, we don't see him again. I was just wondering what happened to him. Did he like go back to Earth, or was he stationed on the
He did. Yeah.
Daedalus?
He went back to Earth, but it's interesting that they don't
Oh.
bring that up until we see him again, I think.
Mm.
But yeah, they should have mentioned it like, oh hey, Bates is gone. He wanted to get reassigned, so we brought in Lorne. Like, Lorne is his sort of replacement. But yeah, it is. Yeah, he does pop up again, though.
In a very interesting episode.
Wait, which one is it?
Outcast. So he's a part of, like, he helps John and Ronan investigate the replicators on Earth. When John's dad dies and he goes back for the funeral. It was season 4. I don't blame you for not remembering.
Yeah. I always forget that episode is called Outcast. That just doesn't, like, I know roughly what happens in the episode, and I know the name Outcast, but they're not the same episode to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah. I was just thinking about the scene where Teyla punches him and it's John who holds her back or like who drags her back basically. I think it was Lorne there, probably not, but like if because he came in later, I think. But if Lorne had been there, I don't know, I feel like he would have been like, oh yeah, he deserved that, but also being kind of impressed by Teyla.
Cheering her on.
While also holding her back, maybe. Yeah, maybe that could have been a first spark.
True.
Honestly, they feel like the type of couple who would just be like hella like flirting while like exercising. Like they're that couple.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, bet you I can do 50 push-ups, and they're just like having a push-up race or competition, and you know, and they're running around Atlantis together, like training, and they're both just like super into it, and they're just like, you know, doing pull-ups and for that vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of John, I appreciated the Mensa lore drop again. I totally forgot that it was ever brought up again after the Brotherhood episode, but it was funny of him to be like, yeah, I could have been in Mensa. To literally anybody who will listen, like, I feel like Rodney and John have a lot more in common than people expect, and this is one of those things where he kind of doesn't want people to know that he's smart, but he also does at the same time, so he kind of, like, annoyingly reminds people, like, oh yeah, by the way, did you know that I'm actually a smart person, which is something Rodney does a lot too. So yeah, I just like that little bit of obnoxiousness from Shepard, the secret nerd in him. Also, how do we feel about John and Layden enemies tension versus a John and Kolya enemies tension? I know we haven't seen all of John and Kolya yet, but thoughts?
Just, I don't think it holds a candle to John and Kolya. And like, I don't even like Kolya, like, fuck that guy, right? But he is a very effective villain when you put him up against John. And I feel like he can be sort of silly, I think, with other characters, but like with John, it's like, no, this is his match. I think like that's his arch nemesis, to sort of put it in like a little corny way. And I think with Layden, like, John does not take him seriously. Jokes with him like he would never with I mean, he does with Kolya a little bit, but he does it like with a gun in his hand. Or like, you know, when he's you know, he's got like one hand ready to shoot his ass, and like, you know, he's joking with the other one. Layden, he was just like chilling, cracking little jokes, telling him, oh, come on up, come see Elizabeth. Like, I also feel like this is gonna be so sad and funny, but I feel like John doesn't take anyone seriously that he can look down upon height-wise. I feel like Kolya's like around the same height, or maybe like, I don't know how tall he is, but the fact that he's like physically imposing as well, I think also kind of freaks John out. I don't think John is really scared of Layden's like noodle arms.
That's fair.
Yeah. He didn't take him seriously. He didn't feel like he didn't really, like, I know he planned this whole thing, and with the coup and everything, and with the ZPM, and like double-crossing the double-crossers and everything, but he didn't, I don't know, I feel like he doesn't really have a lot, this is so mean, I feel like he doesn't have a lot of presence. Like, he's in this episode, and he's like a main player in this whole thing, but it doesn't feel to me like that, to a point that I forget what he's actually like doing. I feel like the first scene when he comes into like through the gate and the whole Lieutenant Colonel errand boy thing, that was funny, but yeah, I think nobody in Atlantis takes him like a worthy, or like an equal, maybe. Or you just like doesn't see him as an equal in any level, like an equal opponent or like ally. He's just there. I feel like.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned sort of his lack of presence, because I was thinking about it right now and I was like, I think it's because, at least maybe for me, where I like the John and Layden, like I don't know if they're trying to set it up as something big or something, but I think John's sort of villains, for lack of a better term, come or are like a lot. You understand them more when they're a lot more like physical, I guess, if that makes sense. Like for John, like I just feel like it makes sense for him to be up against like a very like physical someone who, you know, who's gonna take his team, or someone who's gonna threaten his city, and someone who's gonna like do all that. Like that makes sense for John. And I'm kind of thinking, I wonder if it should have been more of like a Rodney versus Layden type of thing, sort of an intellectual versus intellectual, and if that maybe could have set up more of a villain for Rodney.
Yeah, I really like that, Sam. Thinking about it, just their banter was funny, like between Layden and John, but not intimidating in any sort of way. I feel like, Layden with the errand boy comment, in a sense trying to like emasculate John or whatever, just did not work and flew over his head. Like he just did not care. And even like John being like, oh, like, you want to see Layden to Elizabeth, and like kind of expressing like a little bit of shock and maybe some caution. It didn't feel like Layden was really going to do anything to her, like being in her office, which is sort of demonstrated in the show as well by him being like bullied by the security team on Atlantis to like sit down and stuff like that in her office chair. So yeah, I feel like it might have been more fun to have him be the sort of foil to Rodney. I feel like he was also a part of the whole like atomic bomb, like bomb building on the Janai homeworld. So like having them being competing minds instead, because I don't think in the show Rodney really has his own nemesis like the way John has Kolya, or even like a frenemy like John has Todd later on in the series. So yeah, it would have been compelling to have that.
Right, because I was thinking about it. I was like, well, Teyla has Michael, in a sense, as sort of like her main nemesis. And I was thinking too, I was like, I wish, again, I like the John and Todd dynamic, but again, I was thinking of sort of everyone having their own foil villain, whatever. I was thinking, it would have been so cool if Todd was Ronan's. I think there could have been a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of, not parallels, but just like a lot of interesting things that could have maybe like taken Ronan's character in a really different route. Again, not that I don't love John's banter with Todd, but again, that is another relationship that's kind of like Layden and John, where it doesn't feel like Todd would necessarily ever do anything to John, I guess, or it doesn't feel like there's any stakes sometimes with them. Like maybe in the first episode, yes, but after, once Todd becomes like a recurring character, it's very much like, I don't know, their friend, like their frenemy kind of thing. But maybe if they had kept up that dynamic with him and Ronan, maybe they could have had just a straight up nemesis type vibe.
Yeah, I think for sure it would have made sense, like thematically, in terms of Ronan's whole backstory and relationship with the Wraith. Like it makes sense for him to have a nemesis that is Wraith, but like, is he a bad guy? Because I feel like Ronan is such a person to look at the world in black and white and like, this guy is bad and this guy is good. And so having someone like Todd kind of casts his whole deal in a different light for sure. So yeah, it's very interesting. I like it.
I also wanted to bring up the Lieutenant Colonel Errand Boy line. Dare I say, John's best line.
Yep.
Bold statement, I know, but I just feel like it's so iconic. His little like smirk and his laugh, and again, I love that he does not let Layden get to him. In fact, he embraces it. He's like, yeah, I'm Elizabeth's little bitch boy. Like, then he's like, let me take you upstairs. And we love a man that is okay with a woman in power. And that's just something that John has never really had a problem with. It's just more about someone having power over him in general. Not really the fact that a woman does. So I just love that line. I feel like it solidifies him as a character.
And I like that they ended their episode with the little like mom and dad banter between John and Elizabeth at the end. It's always fun when they get to bookend the episode with those two. Whether it's in the balcony or on her office. I just think it's like, oh, like we're all going to sleep for the night and Atlantis is safe for another day and good work, team, and carry on.
Here's the thing. I liked it, but I actually think it didn't really fit the episode.
That's fair.
I think a team scene would have kind of wrapped it up a little better with, like, everyone, like Teyla, Ronon, and Rodney. Again, not saying that I don't love their little scenes, because I do, especially, like, the balcony. And it's always funny just to see John sitting on her desk, like...
Absolutely.
Like, that's just his seat. He doesn't ever sit down normally. Fucking little freak. So it was cute, and I think they have a lot of really great, like, scenes in this episode that we can talk about. But I didn't love that was the last scene. I was kind of like... It left me wanting more, sort of. It didn't really feel like a resolution. Maybe for me, it was just like, okay.
You have a point, because the team was separated in this episode. They're kind of split in two, so it'd be nice to see like a coming together, back together, on Atlantis debrief sort of situation. We didn't really get any resolution for.
Yeah, especially given these last few episodes, right, that have been so separate. Like the tower, they separate after a few minutes. The long goodbye as well. They're not all together, really. They're chasing after one another. Grace Under Pressure. And the last one they were probably together for was Epiphany.
Oh.
So it's been a while. And I think that's part of the reason why this season just feels so disjointed, is because it just feels like everyone's so separated.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring that up. Well, first of all, I want to say I love that last scene, and to me it was so flirty. Like it kind of made me remember why I used to ship them, and like why I can't blame people for shipping them. Not that I blame people for shipping anyone, but yeah. So that was a scene, and maybe it would have been like to round up of the episode, it would have been nice just to see them maybe just leave her office and like meet the others in the mess hall or something. Just like, so they still have this talk and then they meet the others. But I've been meaning to ask you guys how you feel about this episode, like in this like set of like this season, because we talked a lot about that in other episodes, how disconnected this season is, and I feel like this pretty much adds to that. Like it's very much like, yes, it's a recurring like alien of the week, but it's a very like it's a completely standalone episode. Not completely, but I feel like it's very isolated in a context of the rest of the season, and it's just, oh yeah, another day in Atlantis and this happened today. Was it just me, or?
It's interesting you bring that up, because I think I disagree a little, I will say, because I think I wrote down, I'm trying to find out. Okay, I wrote down this episode feels like a breath of fresh air, because finally we have some decent world building. Because I think it's just nice to have an episode with somewhat that will have consequences. And that's something that I've been really struggling this season, why like the episode of the week thing just doesn't really work for me in general. But I feel like by bringing back the Janai and just having an episode that it totally destabilized their nation. They got rid of like their number one guy. They think Kolya is dead. Like they don't know that he's still around. And so they've put Layden as the head of the Janai. And I think where this episode does falter a bit, though, is sort of its it doesn't necessarily build on the ideas that it puts forth, which is what I will say that, kind of suffers from a little. Like with the whole bounty thing, which is something that's so cool. Such a cool idea as having bounties. That would have been such a cool, like, multi-episode sort of arc or thing they would have had to deal with. Because it just makes sense. But that never really comes back. And so I get where some of, like, the struggle would be, but I also think this episode, that's why I think I prefer this episode over the last, like, 4 or 5 that we've watched, is because at least this one does something for the world. It doesn't follow through on everything, but there's at least a foundation. And I do wish, though, I think this episode would have been better suited for the first half of the season. I think it's a little weird to have it placed around here, and I think it's a little too late in the season. It's been almost exactly 1 season since we've seen the Janai.
Yeah.
And I think that's too much. I think this would have been a great sort of episode 7 or episode 6. But I have to just give it points for the bare minimum, because it's been failing these past few episodes for me.
Yeah, I just want to add to that real quick that it feels like, to me, it feels like the Janai come out of nothing. Like all of a sudden they are there again, and they're like major problem. And when we completely forgot about them for about a season, so I was like, it feels a bit weird to have them here again with like such force. And yeah, and also I wanted to ask, like, my memory is terrible, so it's possible that I just forgot everything, but does Layden return, and do we see the Janai under the new...
Want to say yes.
He does make a reappearance in Common Ground. Kolya's beef, the reason why he captures John is because he wants Atlantis to get rid of Layden for him. Because he feels like Layden took what was his, like he should have been in power.
The Janai have such a weird relationship with Atlantis. Like, they hate it, they want it, but they also want to use it.
Exactly.
But they can never really decide which one it is, or like, yeah, they're such a divided, like, people, I feel like, and I feel like the society is, like, pretty much failing.
But they don't mention him again. Like, I know we see Kolya in Irresistible after that. Or is it Irresponsible? Irresponsible, excuse me. I always get those two confused. But I don't think they really say anything about, like, Layden and his leadership beyond that point on Common Ground. Like, obviously they don't trade Layden for John. The episode ends a little bit differently. So yeah, it's just...
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ashley that it feels weird to have him just come out of nowhere. And so that's why I'm saying I think it would have been better suited for the beginning half.
Yeah.
I think it would have made sense to sort of follow up. And again, sort of establishing Ronan as like a member of the team, right? With having more scenes of him and Teyla. And then like this little rapport with Elizabeth he's got going on. Just to really show that he's fitting in. And I think then they should have had maybe some sort of follow-up episode instead of this one here. So this one would move up and then be something else here. And I think in this episode, again, they should have brought up and they should have dealt with the whole bounties on the expedition. This is when they should have brought it up again. They should have had some sort of solution. And I think it would have been fun to give Ronan maybe a lot to do. I think there's a way that you can kind of work Ronan into an episode like this. I will say, though, I think I didn't really love the Janai, like, the first time watching the show. And I think I found a new appreciation for them, at least for right now. I just love that they somehow always get the Atlantis team good. They're like literally our arch nemesis, basically, because they will always beat our asses. They will always outsmart us in ways that we think we're going to outsmart them. No. and it kind of puts the Atlantis team in their place, which I feel like they need to be humbled from time to time. I just wish they were maybe used better. I don't think they're used the best, and I don't know. How do you guys feel about Cowan dying? Because I think it's a little, not that I really cared about his character, but I think he was a much better leader for the Janai than Layden. Because once Layden's in charge, I think any sense of like, oh, yeah, imposing or some sort of presence is sort of taken away, and it just kind of feels like, oh, they're just sort of there now. But I think Cowan brought something that made them feel untrustworthy and sort of just, you're always on edge around them.
Yeah, totally. So Cowan was like, I hate Cowan. Actually, like, I have strong feelings against him. And it's good. I liked it. I like to have an antagonist, and that's fun and it makes it interesting and like kind of raises the stakes. And with, as I mentioned earlier, that I feel like Layden doesn't really have anything like that. I don't feel he has any like imposing presence or like any sort of very threatening to me. Like just in his like the way he appears to us. I like I don't really like I can't really I feel like completely neutral about him, like because I can't say I like him or I dislike him for whatever reason. But with Cowan, I definitely dislike him, but it's I don't think it's a bad thing. Like I think he's made to be disliked. And I wrote something down when he was like eating, like he was just eating. I would like down Cowan's Denethor moment. He didn't have a tomato, but like I was like, oh, you're so disgusting. I hate you, please. And then he like died. But yeah, in that sense, like I don't care about him like as a person, so I don't mind that he died. But you're definitely right that something, the Janai or the face of the Janai, I feel like they lost something when Cowan died, because now they have Layden and the Janai as like the antagonist of the Atlantis expedition. I feel like don't show up like that anymore because they don't have Cowan anymore. The only time the Janai come up now is because of Kolyab and because of his like vendetta against Shepard. So yeah, in that sense, I'm kind of sad he's gone. Cowan is gone.
Yeah, even in this episode, Cowan seems to be a lot more threatening or intimidating. Even like comments he made about Rodney when he saw them. This idea that people want to keep Rodney for his brain is always like a threatening sort of thing for me in antagonist characters. So yeah, that possibility is kind of gone with Cowan, and so that sucks. Because I mean, I always love the people trying to kidnap Rodney trope. It's just great. Yeah, just a very different relationship that Layden is going to have going forward with Atlantis, where there is no sense of like tension. It's just begrudging allies now, really. And you kind of get that sense throughout this episode as well. So it's not so much of a surprise.
Which is really unfortunate, I think, looking back on it, too. Because I think, we always talk about sort of the lack of tension that this season has sort of sucked out of the show originally. And it's what made the show, like, so exciting and feel like it had stakes. And I would wager that's why they decided to try to kill off Carson in season 3 to maybe sort of bring back that, ooh, look, anything could happen type of thing. I feel like they also realized too late that they had sort of made everything too easy for the gang. And I think, we sort of touched upon the fact that the Janai really have no morals and no sort of ethics. And I think they are such an interesting foil for Atlantis. Literally the exact opposite of Atlantis and even John in charge. We get a scene of John, saying he'll let Ronan and Teyla go, like, fine, but, like, he has to send them out first, scout out, make sure, like, his team's not going to go in any danger. And I think, it contrasts Layden by just sending his sister, his own sister, and some of his people in just to be hostages and just to die, basically. They do not give a shit about their people. So I think it would have been really interesting to see them throughout the show, and I wonder what they would have been like in season 5, and if maybe, I think they could have, there's like so many ways this could have gone. Like they could have sort of had a low point, maybe sort of the civil war between Layden and Koya would have taken them, would have erupted in their faces, and they could have had a low point, and then Atlantis stepped in and helped them, maybe help them reform. Or I was kind of thinking sort of going a sort of a Tolan route kind of with them, bringing it back to SG-1 where the Tolan sort of ended up getting blown to bits and sort of have them disappearing after season 5. And I think it would be really cool if in season 5 maybe the Janai are finally starting to maybe work with Atlantis, and they're looking like they could be sort of maybe assimilating together and sort of fighting up to stand up for the Wraith, against the Wraith. And then the Wraith somehow, find out and blow the Janai to hell. Would have been a really cool... I don't know, there's just so many things I could have done, which is rather unfortunate because now I care about them in a way. And then just side note, I just love their aesthetic so much, and I wish the show had really leaned into it more, because their very, 1940s look and, old tech thing is super cool, and it was something that I really appreciated about them back in their first episode. So it's a little sad for me to see them just, totally, his sister had, her hair down and sort of, in a very modern way, and I was like, oh, I would have killed to see, very, 1940s hair, or 30s hair, her hair up perhaps, and just sort of keeping that aesthetic that they are very different and very maybe more sort very military look about them as well.
I think for me it doesn't really do anything. The looks or their aesthetics. Yeah, the whole military, I don't know. It's no. I think they showed this what's it called? This shot of their underground city, I guess. I wish we'd seen more of that. And explored that a little bit. But otherwise, I think I don't like their uniforms. I think that's it. It's just it gives me an achy feeling. But yeah, I think that's mainly it.
I think it's tough because I feel like it's one of those things where the writers played it safe with the Janai. And the last scene of the episode, Elizabeth was kind of talking about how, and John were discussing how the Janai will be under Layden's rule, and sort of not debating, but alluding to the idea that governments that start by violent means, trying to overthrow a tyrannical government, are not necessarily any better than their predecessors in terms of how they treat their own people as well as other people. So that idea is interesting to explore, but also kind of scary to explore, because I think people could extrapolate that to real life scenarios, and then it can be a landmine to try to navigate that sort of storyline with any sort of message or conclusion or something attached. And so they kind of were just and steered clear of that whole idea and just went a very lackadaisical route with the Janai, I guess you could say. So
I was gonna say, though, I completely forgot that, the reason why they killed off Callan was because he wanted to take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which is not... Where did they just... Okay, he went to, the fucking, Palpatine School of Evil. What are you talking about?
The delusions of grandeur were, astronomical.
Yeah, this is the guy that, he seemed very like grounded, sort of in like his fight for the Wraith. Like they didn't even want to give Elizabeth like a bomb, right? Like they were like, so it just felt very out of left field for him to be like, yeah, actually I want to take over the galaxy. Oh, that's why they're getting rid of me.
Maybe, like, the bomb technology went to his head. Like, I don't know, but...
I feel this is like a missed opportunities section. We're just, like, kidding. This episode is just hitting all of the missed opportunities that they could have had. But I did want to mention really quick what you said earlier, Tor, about the Janai wanting to kidnap Rodney.
Oh, yeah.
Another missed opportunity kind of little thing. I would have liked to see more of that. Not only from Rodney, but just from John, and again from Lorne, with their whole ATA gene. They should have been some black market shenanigans going on. Oh, that is really fun. Thanks for bringing it up and never talking about it again.
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably just have some like little short things. Again, I do love how John and Elizabeth are very much on the same wavelength. Throughout this episode, there's never any sort of disagreements. They just have each other's back. And I just really appreciate how they always just, she takes his ideas into consideration, he takes her ideas together. I just think they work so well together. And it's just so fun to have just like a functioning relationship at the top of the city. Do they make the correct choices? No. But they're in this shit together. So it's like, let's see. Oh, okay. When John is taken by Layden, I was just yelling at like my TV the whole time. I was like, John, what happened to your spidey senses? Are you dumb? Come on. This is too easy. I was like, what is wrong with you? He was like, oh, look, a little ZPM, and he kicks it to Rodney, and he's all like grinning. I'm like sitting there peeling an apple. John, like, come on, wake up.
I feel like the ZPM it just lowers everyone's IQ in the room. It just is such a distraction.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like as soon as there's a ZPM, like that's their one weakness.
Yeah.
Like Atlantis' collective weakness are ZPMs.
It's their kryptonite, 100%.
Yeah. I was about to say that and I wasn't sure if I should.
Yeah. They lose all functioning like brain cells.
Yeah.
They just have zero
Yeah.
when ZPM pop out. It's like the little is that Wile E. Coyote? I don't know, one of those little cartoons that just like the fake little meat in their eyes and they just lose all rational thought and they're just like, and they're chasing after whatever they think is meat. Okay, that's the ZPM.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was also thinking of like cartoons, but like when there's like when someone has a fishing rod and has like the thing that the other person wants and it's just like holding it in front of them the whole time, and like that's Atlantis is that with the ZPM. I'm getting confused with like Z and Zs.
I gotta represent Canada and say ZPM. Rodney, it's for Rodney.
But that's also how I learned it, so I should say it. But in Atlantis, they always say fucking ZPM, except Rodney, of course. But yeah. I'm also Team ZPM.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, I have to say, again, we mentioned this before, but I just love that John and Rodney were damsels in distress.
Oh, yeah.
We got a 2-for-1 in one episode. John and Rodney are both kidnapped.
They both got gassed. They were like having too much fun on their little excursion with the like terrible sunglasses. I call them sunglasses. They're not sunglasses. They're safety glasses, but whatever. And and the like terrible military signs and you're not allowed to have fun. You have to be kidnapped now.
I could be wrong, but I heard in another podcast that like the yellow glasses are like to enhance like contrast or something, so that way you see contrasts better.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
I was wondering what that was
like,
about.
Cool.
I'm surprised they didn't
Yeah.
explain that, like, in the episode. They just walked in with these, like, yellow shades.
Yeah.
Like, too cool for school. And then nobody said anything about it. I'm like, is that normal military procedure? I'm not sure. But that's good to know.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It was not just for the sleigh.
He did look very slay in those, though.
He did. Both of them did.
I was gonna say, of course, I do wish this is a lesson for our team. It isn't.
No.
They're gonna keep being dumb.
Yep.
And that's okay, I guess. No lessons learned here.
This is Atlantis.
Even though...
We don't learn lessons. We repeat the same mistakes.
Yes.
Sometimes we make them even
Right.
worse than the last time.
Usually.
What's that meme where it's like, I will never get better, I will never improve? Like, that's Dark Atlantis. If anything, we'll be getting worse.
That is very true. There's a little meme too I saved recently. It's like, ladies, please allow me, and then it's like immediately fucks up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yup. I just think it's funny because, like, even Elizabeth is getting into it now. She's like, as soon as
Yeah, it's terrible.
Cohen was like, let me kill someone every 15 minutes, like, I'm gonna start with John Shepard, and she was like, bitch, if you do that, it's war. Like, war immediately. Like, I was like, whoa. Like, I appreciate you being protective of your team, but, like,
Yeah.
damn, war over one man?
Over John Shepard.
Honestly,
Yeah.
it's what he would have wanted, even without him dying.
Yeah.
He was just like, yes, let's do war. Yes, please. And Elizabeth's like holding him back, like, no war. So, she was honoring his memory.
Mm-hmm. This
Yeah.
is true.
Okay, and then I have one. I lied. I have two more things. But I was gonna say that kind to Carson. But I think Carson was great this episode. I really liked his scenes with Layden's sister, where she's sort of like, why would you help me? And he's like, it's what I do. I'm a doctor. I like that side of Carson when he's focused on actual medical work. Again, I like his little scene at the end with Layden and Layden saying, thank you, doctor. And just that little scene of him and, you know, doing all that he can for every Janai. And yeah, I just thought that was really sweet.
Yeah, I think it's nice to see Carson kind of in the neutral and, like, talking about how the actions of the military or whatever Elizabeth decides is, like, not even on his radar. He's, like, going to help these people regardless of, like, what is going down in terms of negotiation because, like, that's his Hippocratic oath. And I kind of wish that if Carson had to falter in his doctoring the way that he will in the future, we could kind of see more of the journey. So, like, look back on this moment and have more of a comparison, or have someone make a comparison and be like, what happened? Like, living in Atlantis or, like, living in Pegasus Galaxy for so long has sort of beaten him down in that sense, or, like, whatever the case may be. I think it would have been compelling and given his character something outside of his relationships with other people to explore.
It would have been nice to see, like, an actual downfall.
Yeah.
Instead of sort of like oh, he's good. No, he did some weird things. So I was like, no, he's good again. Oh, there he goes again. And the very last little thing I just wanted to mention, just for continuity's sake, because there's like there's some this episode, and then they also fumble a lot of really cool concepts. But I want to say, they mention Lieutenant Miller. They say that he's one of the lieutenants that flew the jumper over the planet to check out you know, how many life signs there were. And I was like, oh my god. And they said Lieutenant Miller, and I was like, wait a minute. I know him. He's she was one that had a crush on Rodney.
Oh yeah. Oh damn, okay. Too bad.
Yes,
I wish
he's still alive.
we saw him more. Continue that little storyline there. Someone write that fic. I'll read it.
It has to be out there, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's been writing Miller X Rodney fic. Anyways, and we have come now to Ash, unfortunately, for the Bechdel test.
Actually, I gave this episode a pass.
Nice.
Ooh.
There were a few, like, women talking, but it was a lot of time, like, about men, so not passing the test. But Elizabeth and Dahlia, Layden's sister, had some exchanges. So I was like, yeah, I'll let that count.
I love that. I really thought, because there was no Teyla and Elizabeth, that there would be, it wouldn't pass. But you know what?
Yeah, it's a lot of times that I think it's either Lindsay or Dahlia talking to like several people at the same time with another woman there, like either with Elizabeth or Teyla. But I think that's by the way, I was a few times like, oh, does this count? But then I didn't, because it was like more of a group thing and you didn't really know who was addressed. But I think, yeah, between Elizabeth and Dahlia, it passes.
Next we go to Tor for the behind the scenes.
Alright, so I personally think behind the scenes, this episode is quite interesting. I didn't know this prior to watching the episode, but this episode was actually supposed to feature the return of Kolya. He was supposed to be in this episode, but because of conflicts with Robert Davies' schedule, it was rewritten to instead have Layden in it.
Do you know if in the original's idea Kolya was the one to like stage a coup?
That is an excellent question, because it was rewritten. I'm not sure. I don't know if they changed lines of dialogue. I'm sure they did to fit Layden more than Kolya. But I feel like it was probably the same sort of storyline. Because when you pitch an episode, that's the pitch, right? So I feel like, I think Kolya might have been in charge of the coup against Cohen, which would have been a more interesting dynamic, because you really don't know. He's kind of a loose cannon, and he really hates Shepard. So it would be more of a tension in the episode, I feel like, if it was Kolya instead of...
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Sad. Very sad.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we mentioned this before, but there was supposed to be a scene about Sora in the Siege Part 2 where they send her back to the Janai in exchange for the bombs, but it was cut for time. So, yeah, Martin Giro talked about that when discussing this episode, just to clarify that they don't actually have any more Janai prisoners. Sora is not in the basement.
I think Forrest, she will always be in the basement.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she's never getting free.
No. She's
No.
Schrodinger's Sora in the basement.
Wait, and
this
who's
point,
also
she's
down
out.
there?
Ford, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
depending on
and also the other guy from the Prisoner Planet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah, exactly.
Shoot, I forgot about him.
Not
The
really.
engineer dude.
Yeah. They're chilling down there, flipping the basement, and
Yeah, they've
renting
actually
it
had,
to
like,
Exhausted.
Yeah, they have like a 3-bedroom set up already.
Yeah.
Adopted a cat. The cat lives down there too.
Yep.
Or like a whale or something.
It's a big basement, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, they have a tank.
definitely.
They'll fit a whale. So a really interesting thing, we didn't see him in this episode. Zelenka! So, according to Joseph Malazzi on his blog, he mentioned that he had actually pitched a C-plot for this episode that involves Zelenka. And he mentioned that it would be fun to get inside Radek Zelenka's head and explore a bit of his past. So he wanted to include that in this episode, which I feel like is not good timing because it's like a way too much going on. I don't know how he would connect it with the Janai, but they should have done that for another episode, 100%.
Zelenka, you deserve better. I'm sorry I wasn't your writer.
Yeah. Interestingly, the shot of the village on M1K177 before Ronan and Teyla question the bartender is actually a reused shot from the Stargate SG-1 Season 3, Episode 8, titled Demons. And I'm pretty sure that's the episode that Teal'c is accused of witchcraft and is thrown in the lake. I fucking love that episode. Because I love Teal'c so much.
Yeah.
But I didn't clock that while I was watching, so...
I feel
Like
like
every other SG planet, so...
I was just gonna, yeah. Like, they have one village.
They just repurpose it. I don't know if you guys caught this, but Layden's line about the rumors of Atlantis' demise were greatly exaggerated probably sounded familiar. It's likely a reference to Mark Twain's infamous comment about rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. We've heard that line in a couple different media before. Interestingly, Penelope Corrin, who played Dr. Lindsay in this episode, was actually a character in Stargate SG-1. She was in Avalon Part 1 and Origin. So she was actually an SG-1 girly.
Yay!
Yeah.
I was like, she looks so familiar, but I was having trouble placing her. Avalon Part 1.
So she moved to Atlantis, I guess.
What does she do in SG-1?
That is an excellent question. I don't remember. I can look it up.
Blanking on.
Let's see. Oh, she actually tries out for Cam's SG-1, the new SG-1 team. That's where she's from.
Oh,
She's in that little funny montage. She's the one that she speaks like 200 languages and she keeps translating everything that the Cam says.
So cute. No wonder she went to Atlantis.
Yeah.
Brainy.
Like, Elizabeth saw her and was like, that bitch.
Yeah.
I need her. Languages. Yeah. Yep.
Interesting that she's wearing a blue jacket. I would have loved if they had the green on her for like history or like a different color, because she's wearing a blue jacket. So
But blue is just for
she's a scientist.
sciences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Green is for technicians.
Mm.
Oh, what's
So maybe,
history then?
like, I guess history would be civilian, so it would be red.
Oh. That'd be cool.
Oh. We need more civilians, like,
I think it
yeah,
would've been fun if
historians,
they had, like,
linguists.
Yeah. That would have been fun if they were like purple.
Ooh, I like that. And yeah, that's pretty much all we got for our trivia. In terms of different languages, the title is exactly the same in all the different countries that it aired in, including France. So,
Oh yeah, because
Wow.
sometimes when like a title is in a different language, than other than English, then it's translated in like the language into something. Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny.
We're actually going to stay with Tor though, because you have the Fic Rec corner.
Yeah, so this episode really teases a lot of side characters. Characters that we don't get to see a lot, and we don't get to see them a lot in this episode either. So why not write a fic to fix that? Or in our case, read it. So Dominica Marazone, I have mentioned her before. She does a lot of writing about side characters, particularly Lorne for Atlantis. She does a lot of cam fic as well. And she had actually written a particular fic about this episode and all of the various ATA gene carriers on Lorne's team. Really cool. It is called 5 Devices they really shouldn't have initialized. So we always joke about John turning on ancient stuff that he shouldn't have turned on. And it's great. It's great. It's just a great read, especially if you're into like lore-y stuff, humor. And yeah, that's all I got for this week.
Oh, nice. A nice short one. I know we've been recommending quite a lot, which we love, but I also love this one sounds so fun.
Yeah, the fic itself is also pretty short and sweet. It's less than 5,000 words.
Okay. And now we will head over to moi for the poll really quick. We ran a poll for Grace Under Pressure, and the poll was, what were Teyla and Ronon doing during the events of this episode? And, we had 3 choices. Chilling with the Athosians, trading, and taking a well-deserved nap. And everyone voted that they were chilling with the Athosians.
Aww.
They're having a picnic date with everyone.
Yeah.
Love that.
But while Rodney was having a mental breakdown and crying, throwing up, about to die, and they were just singing, having a bonfire, roasting some marshmallows. 100% they came back and they were like, well, this is why you should come with us to the mainland more often, Rodney. They're like, maybe this wouldn't have happened if you said yes to our invitation.
Oh my god, what if Rodney was trying to get to the mainland? I guess they were test flying this, but oh, he's a bit late. He got probably held up at work or something. The usual. I mean, while Rodney is just hallucinating like crazy and delirious.
Wait, that would have been so fun. Just to repeatedly just go back to Ronan and Teyla being like, Rodney. And then be like, yeah, whatever. They're just dancing and having a little party. And by the end they come back and they're like, what happened? And Rodney's just like, please tell me you saved me some marshmallows. And Ronan's like, no, I ate the last one on the way here. And Rodney's just like,
last straw.
Yeah, literally.
His last straw. His 13th reason.
I was gonna say. Oh my god.
The random side notes we always get up to. So our rating for this episode. Okay, I'll just go first. I'll get it over with. So yes, I had problems with this episode. Of course, who doesn't? I think it set up really cool concepts that it just never followed through, which drives me crazy, but that's just kind of the show. I also think it's very out of place in the structure of this season. I think it's sort of like Whiplash to just randomly find out about the Janai and they disappear again for quite a few episodes before they pop up in season 3. So there are things that are not great. However, I just feel like it does enough for me personally. I think the world building is at least there, which is more than I can say about other episodes. I really appreciate Teyla and Ronon getting some decent screen time, and Elizabeth getting good screen time, and John and Rodney just being, make Shep as usual, and their great lines. So, I actually think this was a fun episode to revisit. So, I think I give it a 7.5. Or maybe a 7. I think I'll go 7. But I think that's still pretty good. I think it's above average for me.
Yeah, I thought you would go higher. I thought you would give it an 8.
Well, let's not go crazy talk here.
Yeah.
It's not that good, but it is good.
Yeah.
I think it's better than what, I've been giving for a recent episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think my issue with the episode is that I don't really have any issues. I think it boils down to me not really caring about this episode at all, aside the little fun snippets here and there, except for those. As I mentioned earlier, it didn't really hold my attention, and yeah, I think it kind of acted to the sort of disconnectedness of the season, but it definitely gets points for the cool Elizabeth and the fun quotes. So I was about like I wrote down, I actually had a rating this time, and I had it at a 6 out of 10. But now I'm just like, yeah, is it above average for me? Because 5 is like average. So I think, yeah, it's actually a 5 for me. I think I only saying that because Sam went first and gave it a 7 or 7.5. And I was like, okay, if Sam gives it a 7.5, then I have to like go way down because yeah.
I'm gonna change it up this week, and I'm gonna give it 7 as well. I forgot this episode existed, honestly. I thought it was another episode. So I was pleasantly surprised by what it gave us in terms of lore and just kind of fun shenanigans. I really appreciated, like you were mentioning, Ronan and Teyla actually having something to do that affected the plot of the episode. And they had dialogue. Ronan spoke more than one line, which is always exciting and nice. Elizabeth was the captain of the ship in this episode, had some iconic one-liners. Mikshep being goofy. I also really enjoy. Really wish we could have had more Lorne. Really wish that the Janai were more scary and threatening than they were in this episode. Or at least a little bit more, will they betray them? Or won't they? That we didn't really get. But other than that, yeah, it was fun. It was a fun romp for me.
Well, it could have been so much worse. I feel like...
Should be the title of our podcast.
Yeah. So it speaks for this episode and for our ratings, but also our podcast in general. And there you have it. As we're nearing the season,
yeah,
I wonder if we'll have an episode that we all rank the same. Be sure to check out everything linked in our description box down below. We have our Jumping Puddles socials, and you can see what we're up to and when we post new episodes. You can also check out our private socials, and yeah, you can find more TV talks there about other shows. And of course, we have our fic linked in the description box.
Bye.
And that's it. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.